Well, hello. There's a lot more people than I thought, so that's good. Yeah, so I'm going to give a talk about. I was asked a couple of months ago to give a talk, and my initial reaction was, "No, I'm too busy with the festival." And then Di Jody kind of kept talking the way she does, and I ended up walking away doing the talk. And I just looked at the talk obviously I was preparing it, but I looked at the title again this morning. And I was thinking it's kind of not quite. It is about why care, but what I've been doing the last 2 weeks with the amazing site crew at Buddhafield was setting this festival up, and a lot of it has just come out from that group dynamic and that kind of caring we did as a group to set up this festival. So before that, I was thinking, well, when I was trying to come up with a title, it's like, well, what really moves me in life and also in this kind of Dharma context, Buddhism? And I think what I've always been pulled towards was connection. So I'm always trying to connect with people, trying to connect people together, trying to create something out of nothing. So we entered an empty field 2 weeks ago, and there's nothing here. It was a beautiful field. We've managed to ruin it a bit with the rain that came the other day. But we have hopefully created something very beautiful. And how we did that was through care. We took a lot of care. There's a lot of planning beforehand that I wasn't involved in, other people were involved in. And then a lot of voluntary work just people just came because they cared about the path of beauty, the path of ethics, the path of enlightenment, awakening. So I had noticed through my 20s that my normal way of trying to connect was it was just through craving. I would try to just acquire stuff, and I kept trying to acquire more and more, and it wasn't actually working very well. And I realized that actually a better way is trying to appreciate things. So instead of grasping and acquiring, I could just try to open myself up to appreciation. I didn't have any of this language at the time. So the language of the heart, the language of appreciation, beauty. I mean, it was around, but it was all a bit. I felt at the time a bit soft, a bit kind of. It wasn't kind of where I grew up. Let's say I wouldn't talk like that. So coming across the Dharma was amazing. Coming across Urgen Sangharakshita's exposition of the Dharma, which he emphasizes the arts and beauty, was really a game changer for me. So yeah, the talk is about why care. So you could approach Buddhism in 3 different ways, and the first way is like the developmental model, where there's us and then there's the goal, and the goal is miles away, like too far away from me, really. And what I find, it is a good path. It's a real path, and it's the path I started on. And I still go through the developmental model, where I'm trying to cultivate all these awakened qualities. Kindness, appreciation, gratitude, love, compassion, joy. And with the site crew, we're doing this every morning. We're trying to understand these different qualities, and but there's a danger in this developmental model, and that is that you're never really there, and it's become self-improvement. So it's just about improving the self, and then it's possible then to slide into not quite self-hatred, although some people do, but just a bit of more dissatisfaction. The whole point of Buddhism is you're trying to move away from dissatisfaction. So that was the developmental model. The second model then was surrender, where you just surrender to a higher power. So there is awakening in the world. You see a child fall or an adult fall, and you just immediately respond to that. So that, in a way, is an expression of the awakened heart. So our awareness, like we're aware of each other now, that awareness is the seed, or even if we can really accept it, the fruition of awakening. And then our response to things, usually spontaneous response, when we don't think too much about it, is the awakened heart responding in the world. So the second way was just to try to open up and just surrender to that, just become this awakening. So that's bringing in this kind of idea of a higher power, and I did like that. Now with my Irish Catholicism, there was always I wasn't never really sure whether I was just relating to a god or not, but it's another way. And then the final way, which I've come around to in the last couple of years, is that we are already awake. So it's a kind of a self-discovery, and it's a bit related to surrender. So we are awakened beings. We just can't, won't see that or believe that. So within us is all we need. We don't have to keep trying to improve. In a way, it's our divided mind, which is a really helpful mind that tries to fix things and helps each other and plans, and this festival wouldn't happen without that mind. But in a way, that takes too much we give it too much privilege sometimes, and then it won't allow us just to be awake. So we can no longer trust our intuition, our heart, because it's just like, no, that's too, it must be harder, it must take millions of years to awaken. So yeah, that annoying little mind is obviously always there, but it's about turning with care. So this is like, why care? So one of the reasons to care is just because, why wouldn't you care? Like, I just don't understand people who wouldn't care. Obviously in our worst moments we don't care, but even just caring in a more internal thing. So we would turn to this mind that really wants to help us, this kind of divided mind, I'm calling it, that is able to discern. It's not necessarily a negative thing, it just discerns different things. Okay, that needs to go there, and then that will go there. It's very useful. But then when it's also saying, no, you can't be awake, there must be more to it, that mind, you can turn towards that undivided mind with care and allow it in, because otherwise we're pushing it away. So that's basically what me and the Psych Crew have been investigating. We've been trying to wake up during this festival. We've been putting up the structures and just at the same time just trying to awaken this heart that is already awake. So it's been quite a paradoxical journey, and I think at least they said they found it helpful. I found it extremely helpful. So what I might just try to do a little, well, first of all, I'll give an analogy of what I'm talking about. So I was walking around, so Ratna Deva very kindly said I was involved in organising the festival. I mean, I was, but I was assistant to somebody who was really involved. So Kirsty Porter has been really involved with mainly the layout this year, so where everything goes. So we were joking that she's the pointer. She points, put it there, put it there. And then I'm the assistant pointer, so I just kind of say, she said put it there, and she says put it there. So I'm a little bit further down the pecking order than Ratna Deva was saying. But in a way, we're walking around, and it is actually quite difficult. There's a lot of planning, like making sure that people don't just kind of pop up and put stuff in the wrong place. And you know, where should the toilets go, and where does the plumbing go, and things like that. So I was shadowing Kirsty, and in a way you could say that Kirsty, she's doing it 16 years now or something like that. So she is like this knowing mind, the undivided mind. She knows everything, it seems, about everything. And then I'm the divided mind, just like, well, why do we do that? No, maybe we should do that. But what about that? And the toilet's there, and what the hell is that big tent doing? And she's just kind of there like, yes, it's fine, everything's fine, that's gonna, and she just knows the answers. So in a way you can see this division was very clear to me going around, how I needed to just trust the mind that is already present, the kind of knowing mind, and just allow my own anxiety to be there, but also just realize this bigger thing going on. And unfortunately, I would get dragged into my anxiety too much, and then I'd have to kind of step back and just allow things to be as they are. I mean, in Buddhism, we're trying to see things as they really are. So in a way, if we try too hard to do that, we're kind of getting in the way of it. So what we'd worked out is that, yeah, caring for our mind, caring for our heart, caring for each other narrows the gap of separation. So it's no longer us it's no longer me separate to Kirsty. In a way, I'm trying to move closer to this mind, and then through that we become a bigger mind, because I did have a few, you know, beneficial things to say every now and then, which she took on board and which helped. So just to give another taster of what I'm trying to say, I'm going to do a little, I'm not going to get you to turn to the guy beside you and stare into his eyes, because I always dislike that myself. But what I will do is, if you just, I'll try to do a little experiment on how I think the path is simple. Possibly not easy, because we don't allow it to be easy, but it's definitely simpler. So we'll do a little experiment just to see, can you get in touch with this mind. So I think the most important thing is not to push away any dissatisfaction. So if we maybe close our eyes and bring to mind something that is dissatisfactory at the moment. So it might be some pain that you're feeling today. It could be physical, it could be emotional. It could just be slight irritation that I'm still talking, anything like that. And just allow that to be, and maybe try to feel it viscerally in the body. And then from that point, so you're allowing the dissatisfaction. Usually I, and probably we, push it away. So can you feel a sense of relief on just allowing that to be there? And possibly put your hand on your heart can help. And then dwell on that sense of relief. So you're still holding the dissatisfaction, but now you've got relief. And just dwell on it. And what we dwell on, it just naturally expands, I find. Or that's what the Buddha says, actually. So now we've got the dissatisfaction, we've got a sense of relief, and we're dwelling on it and allowing it, if it does, to expand. And then allowing the divided mind to come in, just say joy. Just introduce the concept of joy. Maybe allowing it to drop into that sense of relief. Just trust the body to respond. Joy. And then bliss. And then just recognize that we have discontentment and we have contentment. We have dissatisfaction and an element of relief or joy in our experience. And with that, we can develop equanimity. So this is the deep acceptance of the Buddha under the Bodhi tree, from which all insight can arise. Okay, so thanks for that. So that whole kind of experiment, it was quick, and you could do it for longer through the day or in sitting practice. But the tone of it was care, so we're caring for what's going on, which is what I'm really trying to emphasize, is that if you, and we know you can't really define care. Well, you probably can. I couldn't, but you can't. I couldn't define care because every time I tried to define it without a dictionary, it kind of moved and shifted. So I think it's best left undefinable. But we know what care is. Like we know when we're caring. It's like beauty. We know when something's beautiful. We don't need somebody to tell us this is beautiful because, like, this sunset's beautiful because of those clouds. In a way, meanwhile, the sunset has just been beautiful, and we're separated from it. But if we just move towards caring attitude, then the separation of self and other collapses, and we're just left in this content place. So I'll just talk a bit more about Sight Crew then. So yeah, we had to set up, and the first few days was extremely wet. Like it was just raining a lot, which is hard to even remember that now. But and we had a very mundane job. We turned up on site, and there was 2 days extra work than we'd done before. We had to basically, the waterman had come and said that we had to dig drainage ditches into the forest, and then in those drainage ditches we had to barrow a lot of wood chip, like a lot, 2 days worth, with about 20 people going non-stop into the thing to protect to drain away the water. Now this could have been incredibly boring, but we actually had a great time doing it, even in the lashing rain. And we were discussing why was this so good, and it was just, well, first of all, we cared about each other. Like we were checking on each other. If someone was really tired, we'd just say, we'll take a break. If somebody was struggling, we just look after each other. And then the other reason was we actually cared about the task. So we no longer just had this task to do for maybe a monetary payment. I mean, it's more or less all voluntary. The reason we were doing it is because we really wanted this to be a place of love when people turned up, and we tried to make it the most loved up setup ever. Which I don't know, I felt a lot of love there. But so we were doing this task, and we were doing it with so much care that actually what should have been really boring and kind of horrible task, just barrowing non-stop into the woods, became this, like, it was just a lot of laughter, a lot of joy. And it was because we were holding this bigger perspective, this mind or this heart that was able to care for what it was doing and care for each other at the same time. So how we approach this, though, didn't, in a way, it's that's always there, but we had to kind of tease it out. So there's a famous Japanese bicycle instruction from the 70s, and it says, how does it go? Japanese bicycle assembly requires great peace of mind. And we loved that, because that basically meant that doing the task was the way to create the peace of mind. So it was the other way around. It wasn't like we would meditate, try to create a peaceful mind, then go and do the task, get frustrated, and go back and meditate with a frustrated mind. It was more that, okay, the task is going to create the peace of mind. So the only reason we were doing the task, besides obviously that we wanted to do it and we cared for the people who were going to come, but in the moment we experimented with, okay, the task is the creation of the serenity of mind. So anytime we were getting frustrated, it's like, oh yes, this is the practice. This is the creation of the serenity of mind. And from there, we made a leap. I think just the element of fun in that as well, in switching things around, helped us. And then we realized what was coming out of that was a real individuality. So here we were, like 20 or more of us, just constantly doing this kind of, should have been a monotonous thing, back and forth, hour after hour. The sun then came out, which was absolutely baking. So then we were doing it in the sunshine. And we started to see each other. We started to see the individuality of each other, even though we were doing the same task. And it was a bit like, first of all, we were the doozers in Fraggle Rock. If anyone knows Fraggle Rock, we had the doozer mentality. So the doozers in Fraggle Rock, it's a beautiful system, actually. They're a community of workers, and there is no hierarchy. So there's the architect, there's the builder, there's the site planner, there's the, probably you have an accountant, I don't know, I can't really remember. But there's all these different roles, but there's no hierarchy. So we would naturally maybe put the architect a little higher than the guy who's in the barrow. But with them, there was no hierarchy. Everybody was the same. And what everyone, so no one was allowed to be above anyone else. So they lived really peacefully, and they just got on with the work. And what they used to do is they would build structures for the Fraggles who lived on the rock. So the Fraggles would then have these little structures being built around them, which made the place quite beautiful and pretty, but then they would just eat them. So I remember as a kid, as I was looking at it, I was like, what the hell are you eating? These guys have taken ages. But after looking at it for a while, you realize that actually the Fraggles had to eat the doozers' buildings. Otherwise, the doozers would run out of things to do and they would die. So there was this kind of symbiotic relationship where the doozer had the communal spirit going on, but they had no individuality. And the individuality was the Fraggles. The Fraggles always had massive hair, played instruments, were able to do loads of various different individual things, but they were a total mess as well. Like, they were chaotic. For food, they relied on the doozers creating buildings to eat. It wasn't a particularly good system. If you took either of them apart, neither of them would do very well. So what we had achieved was we had resolved the doozer-Fraggle dichotomy through caring. Like, it was that simple. It was like, wow, this age-old problem of doozer-Fraggle, we've managed to collapse through a sense of care. So what happened is, as we were doing it day after day, we just began to care for each other, care for the project, and people's individuality came out, and we ended up knowing each other. We had a community that was based on love and understanding and kindness and gratitude. We also had people dressing up in dresses, dressing up in trousers, dressing up in, changing their hairstyle, and just expressing themselves in check-in, where we go around in a circle every morning and people would just tell each other how they're doing. If they felt real love, they'd tell you. Around the fire, when we were relaxing in the evening, you'd have really good conversations, because there was this kind of trust that, yes, we have something in all of us here that we can express to each other. We don't have to be afraid of that. We can really embrace that. And the more we did it, the better we got at it, until even if someone felt like, I'm really frustrated today, because my team member wasn't or you weren't doing what I felt, there was a level of care and trust that we were able to say that to each other and really kind of achieve something much bigger than the parts. Yeah, so there's a story in Buddhism. So what yeah, just to get back to that, like we know what caring is, we know what beauty is, we know what goodness is, but we don't. We know them when we do them. So we have to trust that we know it. And in the Buddhist tradition, there's this beautiful story, probably my favorite story it was mentioned in the opening ceremony, of the Buddha. He's practiced for years, austerities, he's very willful practice. He's trying to smash through to some kind of enlightenment. And he nearly dies from the effort. So a woman turns up as he's flailing around in the river and saves him and gives him some milk to drink. He then goes to sit under a full moon with the stars out. He sits under a beautiful Bodhi tree and remembers a time in his past when he was under a tree, and he just felt joy at being himself. So, you have the masculine aspect of our experience, really effort, really trying to achieve something, which is important because that is the energy that gets us there. But then the feminine in the story comes in, and the feminine is the woman giving the milk, the full moon, and then the tree, I suppose, brings the two of them together. So he's sitting under the tree, and he touches the earth. And it's said that he touches the earth because he's assailed by doubt at the last moment, doubt that he actually can be awakened. So, and it's this doubt that makes us not see what is actually very close, which is the awakened heart. So the Buddha had this, or the Buddha-to-be had this doubt, and he touched the earth and he turned towards his experience, and the earth goddess arose and said, yes, this person has done what needs to do, he should be awake. I don't think that's verbatim. And then he, and with that, in that moment, he woke up. So I often reflected on that story and thought, wow, you just have to touch the earth and turn to your experience. And I've been doing that in meditation for about 10 years, just turning towards my experience. But usually the experience is just the same kind of distractions. And I don't think I was turning towards it fully. I think I was pushing the distractions away and turning towards the good bits instead of trying to integrate the whole thing. So one morning I was talking about this story in the check-in and saying that this is the way we should turn towards our experience and this would be great. And it all sounds brilliant in theory. And then the jobs were handed out and it's like, right, you're going down to the organic poo pots and you're going to shovel them out to get them ready for the new festival. So suddenly it was like, oh right, okay, that's not quite what I thought I'd be turning towards my experience. I thought it'd be like half an hour every, 3 times a day, half an hour I turn towards my experience as I'm sitting in a nice tent. But then we were sent down, we were asked to go down to the compound, and actually loads of people volunteered. It was great. And we went down, and at first, so when you're going to the toilet here, everyone's probably gone so far here, you're basically sitting on this big plastic pot, and it all just goes in, and then there's sawdust, and then in the winter people turn up and roll them in the forest there, and the whole thing composts over 2 years, and then after 2 years we shovel out this beautiful compost and use it elsewhere. So that's the theory. And then last winter, for some reason, we didn't get as many people turn up as we usually do, and things were kind of missed. So the first few poo pots were great. It was like, yeah, this is great. Look at us, we're turning towards our experience, aren't we brilliant? But it actually was just organic, so it was no big deal. And then we started opening 1 or 2 other ones. I was like, whoa, no way. I'm not going near that. And then, so we trotted up happy. Yes, we've done another great day's work. And then there was a bit of a discussion. It's like, well, if you count up how many we need to open those other ones. We're like, well, there's no way we're going to open those other ones. Like, it's just like yesterday, someone, like a whole festival, just went to the toilet in them. So, but it's like, well, there's nothing else to do. So, they weren't. Well, they were actually quite rough, but there was somewhere to put them. I'm now thinking maybe I shouldn't be telling this story. We put them. It was all put in a compost area and properly sorted out. But the point of the story is that we went down and we had to open this. About maybe 4 particularly bad ones, and just open it and just out. And what we thought would happen is that we'd all just be like, oh my God, we just can't do this. But what we had been discussing in the morning seemed to actually have an effect, because people, all of us basically just said, yes, let's just do this. Because at this point, we're just so involved in turning towards that. And you can't turn anywhere else with that kind of smell. It's just like you're there. You didn't have to turn towards, actually. You just had to be there. It definitely was a you had to be there position. And people were just throwing themselves into it, not with a spade, like just shoveling it out. And it was so so joyful. And then in the end, like after a few minutes, we were like, hey, let's get some music. So we asked a couple of the musicians just to go down. Would they go back up? And we asked everybody else, do you mind if these guys step out of shoveling to bring down their instruments and play music? And everyone's like, yeah, let's do that. So we went down they went up, got the instruments, came down, and we just had this brilliant shoveling of poo with really good music. Everyone just singing and dancing. And I think that might have been possibly the best moment of the whole setup, which was shoveling shit. And, I've got degrees, I shouldn't be doing this. But it was brilliant. It was just so good to, it was a real visceral example of turning towards. So the Buddha was under the tree, and it's like, yeah, he turned towards experience and he was enlightened. You think, well, maybe turning towards experience is easy, but it's simple. It's a simple thing to know what to do. But sometimes the experience can be really difficult. And I think maybe it's if the experience is really difficult to turn towards, it's actually where we should be turning. So instead of just turning to our little habits in meditation, when we're out in life, then turning towards the real shit, I suppose, that is the good stuff. It's the stuff that actually nourishes us, the manure for the garden and things like that. So yeah, that was a real learning curve, and I think we all came out of it really well. And yeah, the showers were busy that night. Yeah, so what we were trying to do is, I think we got to a point where, like, especially on the checkout a couple of days ago, a lot of us had, and I'm throwing the word around a bit, awakened, but I think we definitely awakened to something. So we're not like a group of psych crew who are fully awakened beings, or are we? Because it is kind of that simple. You just need to care for your experience, but I suppose it's caring for it all the time, consistently. That's the thing. So we didn't really develop it. We had a developmental aspect where we would check in and we talk about gratitude, we talk about kindness, we talk about the awakened heart, but we also and we surrender to each other. We surrender to the festival, I suppose, and the plan that was there. But also we just really tried to trust that, okay, look, we're human and we are justification enough in ourselves. We don't have to justify ourselves with being useful. Some of us, we had all different sets of skills, but in the end, after millions of years of evolution, we are justification. You don't need to prove anything. This is it. This is millions of years of evolution, and that is actually enough. If we can deeply get in touch with that, obviously not the bit that just had the ego trip. The kind of the deeper bit is enough to awaken, and if we can feel that viscerally, then that is what we need to just dwell in and develop and just allow to develop and come through us. And again, by caring, so if we are formally meditating, if we just dwell in that kind of mind that isn't trying to do too much, the kind of kirsty mind, then it does get bigger. And it really does come down to trust. In Buddhism, trust is called shraddha, which is to place your heart on. So if you can just place your heart on that and not doubt it, and be able to kind of touch the ground and not doubt it, then the path and the goal really do kind of become the same thing. So, I mean, this could all be wrong, by the way, because I'm not enlightened, but this is what's come out of the last couple of weeks. So yeah, there's a quote from Desjardins, I think his name is, and he says, "Someday, after we have mastered the winds, the waves, the tides, and gravity, we shall harness the energies of love, and then we will have discovered fire for a second time." So just the power of this, if we are able to unleash it, is really necessary at the moment with the climate problems and the wars. And it's subversive, which is what I really love about it. It's like an act of terrorism of the heart, because we're told all the time by military people, by the banking system, by our own delusions, that the individual can't do anything. We're not really empowered, but actually each of us have this energy in us, this kind of what the Buddha called metta. So and he said it shine, blazes, and radiates forth. So it was this powerful thing. It wasn't this kind of wishy-washy sentimentality. It was a real power. And if we all trust this and harness it, then we can change anything we want. And we've seen it through history where the change happens, and then it kind of collapses back and then it changes again. So it's up to ourselves to kind of push the change through trusting this opened heart, this bodhi heart, this awakened heart. So that's all fine, but at the same time, it's like, well, still, why should I care? Because I'm just going to die, and someone else will take up the baton. But the thing with what the Buddha is saying is, he's saying there is no fixedness in the universe. There is no nothing fixed, nothing permanent. So that implies ourselves as well, or he said it explicitly, that there is no self. And if there is no self, then there's nothing to protect. So we actually have nothing to lose. So in a way, this love, this energy is just waiting to flow through. But what we put the biggest obstacle in front of it, which is ourselves. We decide that there is a self because it's so convincing. And then from that, we create this massive obstacle. Now you've got 7 billion people minus, I don't know how many are awakened, but you've got 7 billion people more or less acting like this. So that creates this dynamic of greed and hatred. And that then creates a world in which there's greed and hatred. But if we can just see that actually there is no self to get in the way, then we have this upsurge of spontaneity, of creativity, of joy, compassion. When you see somebody suffering, you just respond because you're not worried about yourself. When you see someone happy or joyful, you just end up being happy and joyful because there is nothing to be envious about. There is nobody to be envious. So it's not that it's nihilistic. It's just, well, why wouldn't I care? Because caring is just natural. It's there. We just through language and other reasons we get confused, and we put the biggest obstacle we could in front of it, which is the I. So the I basically dwells in thought most of the time. So if we can just sit with our thoughts and then realize that there's something looking at the thoughts, something bigger is observing the thoughts, and dwell in that, that is basically enough to loosen this obstacle to love and compassion. So this is why the Buddhist path can be so radical. We just kind of have to trust in it, or kind of do it. So yeah, if we dwell in this knowing, so I was just wondering whether to do a kind of experiment or not. Maybe not. Okay, why not? So if we just kind of sit with ourselves, like maybe close your eyes again, put your hand on your heart. It seems to help to embody ourselves. And then just allow our thoughts, or even the sound, listen to the sounds, allow the thoughts, people shuffling maybe or walking by, and notice the labeling, the thoughts of all this. And then try to take a kind of back step or turn around and just see that there's something that is noticing all of this. Now, there's not much you can say about, or I can say about that thing, other than it's not the thing that usually runs our lives. Okay, so that'll probably do for that. But the point is, I'm trying to make is that is there all the time, and if we can turn towards that more and more, more is revealed. So the more we look at that, whatever that is, the more is revealed of the mystery. So someone asked me the other day, is Buddhism a religion? I don't think it's a religion, but I've seen it expressed religiously, and I express it religiously because I enjoy that. But what I think is what you can get is a religious response to that awareness, or to that metta, unconditioned love. So the more I try to dwell in that aspect, that bigger knowing, the more of a religious response I have to life. And what I mean by religious is this kind of awe and wonder, and not actually knowing, and then not needing to know. So just accepting that there's this great mystery that I'm part of, and that actually the more I look, the less of me there even is. It's just this thing happening. And for me, that's what the religious side, if you want to call Buddhism a religion, then it's a religion. It's an awe and wonder at just being alive and awareness, and being able to very quickly tap into that. I mean, it's amazing to just be able to tap into that at any time, And the more you do it, the more you can tap into it. And it becomes, so I prefer the word sacred than religious. So it becomes a sacred thing, this awareness, something to be held in each other, and something so we respond to each other. We have, each of us is an expression of this thing. I'm calling it a thing because words are dualistic, and I can't really think of any other way of saying it. So at this point, I'm going to just read out a poem from Mary Oliver, which I like, and kind of points to prayer. It's called prayer, and this kind of sacred thing. So she writes, it doesn't have to be the iris. It can be weeds in a vacant lot, or some stones. Just a few words patched together. Don't try to be elaborate. It is not a contest, just a doorway into thanks, and a silence in which another voice may speak. So I like the line particularly, a silence in which another voice may speak. So it doesn't have to be the beautiful iris, although there's nothing wrong with irises. It can be anything. It can be the weeds in a vacant lot. Just turn towards the doorway into thanks. It's another voice may speak. So this is, for me, what prayer can be. So through this awareness of awareness, let's say, we can kind of spiritualize our lives. Our lives can become sacred. Each other's lives can become sacred. And it can become very enthusiastic about life. And enthusiasm has the word theos in it, which comes from God. So enthusiasm is actually related to God, or the sacred. So I suppose the joy, in Buddhist terms, the joy that's released, and the spontaneity and the creativity that is released when we care about each other, and we care about our mind, and we care about this other aspect of us, is that's the enthusiasm, that's the sacredness of our lives. So in the end, we can become, so getting back to Saikru, every day we had loads of tasks to do. But at the same time, we're trying to cultivate this uselessness. So there's this thing that Danaraja talks about, the greater mandala of uselessness. It appears in the later Buddhist tradition. And it's how that we are already creative enough, we are already good enough, we just have to kind of get out of the way. And the greater mandala of uselessness means that we can be ornamental, we can be aesthetic, we just follow beauty, we don't have to be utilitarian. So we had all these tasks to do, but at the same time we're trying to do them in a kind of pointless way, in a way, to get out of the way of acquiring. So we're not trying to acquire stuff. We're just doing them because what else would we do? We just give our time and energy to creating a kind of thing of beauty and love. But there's that tension, because at the same time things have to get done. So it's trying to hold this uselessness in a greater context, trying to hold usefulness in a greater context of uselessness is what was a really good way of approaching life, and is kind of what we did, and is what the Taoists call becoming the big tree. So you become a tree that's so big, so beautiful, that it's actually pointless to do anything with it except just look at it and appreciate it. So I think as the site crew went through the 2 weeks, we became more and more of this big tree, and now and the cafe crew and all the other crews just became this big tree, which now we see around us. This big, beautiful tree that is, in a way, pointless, but actually is also extremely important and serious. So we don't want to be too earnest about the whole thing, but at the same time, it is an important thing to put on each year. So it is the Taoist tree. It is this big, beautiful tree that, in a way, you can't really cut down to use for firewood. So in a way, it is a kind of pointless thing in a way. I don't know if I'm making sense anymore. I thought I'd be well finished by now. So Einstein said, basically, everything is either a miracle or nothing is a miracle. So I suppose that's your own choice. You either decide everything is a miracle, shoveling shit out of a big bucket is a miracle, and the stars at night when you're singing a song under them is a miracle, or you decide nothing is a miracle. Now, I'd prefer to live in the first option, and I think the more you dwell in this caring aspect, this caring attitude, and the more you trust your heart, and the more you trust that there is interconnectedness, there is a lack of self getting in the way, then it just becomes a miracle, and then you don't have to explain it. So all the Buddhist concepts, I mean, they're amazing concepts, Buddhists, all the lists, they're all fine, and I really enjoy reading them, and I get a kick out of it. But actually, it's also a lot simpler than that. It's about caring for your own experience, caring for each other, and appreciating the sacredness and the miracle of all of us being alive, and the joy we can give to each other. Sangharakshita says, you don't need to be holy, peaceful or wise. That can be a rejection of your experience. We just need to be ourselves and just go deeper with ourselves, deeper with each other. There is no separation. So all we need to do really is to trust the heart, trust each other and live our lives. Thank you.